Hey everyone, Brent here from unfuckyourself.com. Now, if you want to skip straight to it and just book in a 15-minute strategy call, then click the button below this video and you'll be taken to a calendar where you can just pick off a time that's going to suit you, and we can connect like this online and just have a chat, see where you're at, see where you want to go, and see whether this is actually going to be a good fit for you, because I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. However, if you're experiencing some challenges, some mental blocks, some limiting beliefs, or you're just stuck like in a cycle of anger and sadness, shame, guilt, then I've got an amazing experience for you. So click the button below this video and it'll take you to that calendar and you can do that straight away. For those of you who don't know me, how this all came about is it all started for me on around my 32nd birthday. You see, I was sitting in my car at the front of my parents' house, and I had a bottle of alcohol, I had a bunch of pills, and I had a razor blade about that long. And I remember I just wanted to just go to sleep, cut myself, and just bleed out, because at that point in my life I'd fallen into the trap of comparing my life to all my friends around me. They were all off getting married, having meaningful relationships, they were in jobs that they liked, and I just never felt like I fitted in anywhere, But a bit of backstory before that. In '99, I joined the army, and in that time, I deployed 3 times. So I deployed 3 times in the space of 4.5 years, and ever since then, my life was a roller coaster of ups and downs, and jobs and partners and friends and all sorts of stuff. And I could never really find my feet. And it got to the point on my birthday where it was just that bad, and I ended up going down to get some professional help, and they gave me a bunch of pills, kept me in overnight, and then they kicked me back out into the world and said, "Oh, go do your thing." So I assumed my mental health was better, right? 5 years later, I found myself in the same trap again. Right? Except this time it was much worse. I had the problems from a 32nd birthday. This time they'd manifested into something that was even worse. And it was in that moment where I had a business partner that did the wrong thing by me, and my old army training kicked in, right? So my old job description was to seek out and close with the enemy, to kill or capture him, to seize and hold ground, and to repel enemy attack by day or by night, regardless of season, weather, or terrain, right? So I had this programming that was so strong, and I could never really quite figure out why my life wasn't working out. And I ended up things got really, really bad for me a couple of years ago, and I ended up being checked into a mental hospital. It's not even a really nice thing to say, but I thought I've lost everything, right? I was in my late 30s and I lost everything. I was embarrassed. I felt guilty. I felt like, what's wrong with me? I felt all this not worthy. Like, I felt low. I felt horrible, depressed, anxious. I was diagnosed with chronic PTSD. I was diagnosed with chronic depression, anxiety, substance abuse, right? I had all this stuff that was wrong with me because my thoughts were keeping me in a prison, right? My thoughts from my childhood, and all these different meanings that I used to give to things, and how I perceive things through the world. Right now, when I had the chance to go in hospital, I got to a point, I was just low, I was flat, I was done, right? And I thought, let's just take it day by day. And so I did, right? So I'd see a psychiatrist every day. He'd give me medication. Then I'd see a psychologist every couple of days, So they'd talk about problems. They'd talk about certain events, certain things that had happened in the past, right? And what had happened is I'd get really angry, and then I'd go see the psychiatrist to get more medication. Back to the psychologist, talk about your problems, get really angry again. Over to the psychiatrist, he has some more medication, right? And that was the cycle for a good 2.5 months. And the end result of that is I put on a heap of weight, right? Because of all the medication, the Seroquel in particular. I developed a stutter. I remember when my parents came in to see me, they brought the dog, and I couldn't even talk properly because of the medication, right? And I thought, fuck, right? This is the gold standard of care for veterans, right? This is the best that they've got, right? And notice it was a revolving door, right? People would go out, then they'd come back in. Then they'd go out and they'd come back in, right? A guy left not long after I'd got in there, and he was back in 6 weeks later. After he got a big payout, he pissed all his money away, put it all on drugs, cars, all sorts of stuff, right? And I just became very, very curious. right? Because I wanted to fit in, I wanted to have a good life, I wanted just to be happy as we all do, right? But I became very, very curious as to why in the gold standard care for veterans, it doesn't seem to be working, right? It's like everyone's got these backpacker problems, and everyone's teaching you mechanisms and coping strategies to live with this big problem of a backpack, right? So I really wanted to. I had nothing to lose. I really wanted to get to the bottom of it, and I just became very curious. I thought, so how am I talking to myself versus how is that Vietnam veteran talking to themselves versus how is my friend who's a pilot, is happily married with kids, how does he talk to himself, right? How's that young Iraq veteran talking to themselves? And I just became very, very curious, and I thought, maybe it's the language that we're using, right? And I just became very curious about that. So, move forward a little bit. A friend of mine who had great results in his life, and he had a great relationship, he had a career he was passionate about, he was helping people. I looked at him and I just thought, I wonder how he's talking to himself, right? So I approached him and I asked. And I went on one of their events, and I learned more about myself and my inner dialogue in the first 3 hours of that event than I did the entire 2.5 months in hospital. It was crazy. I thought, wow, if I got that out of the first 3 hours, then I wonder what the weekend's going to hold for me, right? After that weekend, I stopped taking the bulk of my medication, right? And I just started exercising. Right? I started to change my story, so to speak, right? I started to change the meanings I gave things. I started to, rather than have flat out opinions about things, I started to question things. I started to question the meaning I was giving things. I started to question my perceptions. Were they real or not? And if they weren't, what were they based on? Right? And it sent me on this journey where I went along and I kept going with it. It's like that when someone plants a seed in your mind, like that your tree can't stop growing, right? So I kept going. And then I went on to their next event the year after, and it's their longer one. And on day 3, we did an exercise that it's probably one of the most profound days of my life, right? Because I went through this exercise on day 3, and it was like, by the end of it, I could just take a breath. I was like, and just felt like oxygen hit my lungs, like for the first time. And it was in that moment that I didn't realize how big my problems were until they were gone, right? In that moment. And so I didn't realize how much energy, how much time, how much of my body was being used to process negative emotions, and how much of my awareness was used to process my thoughts and my thinking around my problems, right? All my energy, all my awareness, all my being was focused on all this shit that wasn't working in my life, right? And when I'm focused on all the stuff that's not working in your life, right, you've got all these solutions all around it, right? So, man, I learned a whole bunch of skills, a whole range of skills that basically start to shift the things that are no longer working for people, right? And it was in that moment, after I went through that, had that experience myself, like my life went, do you remember, the older guys will get this, the grandfather clocks with the pendulum thing, right? So my life was like a pendulum. It'd swing, so I'd be really super happy, everyone's best friend, everything's working out, everything's great. Something wouldn't work out, or I'd be disrespected, or something go wrong, and I'd just flip back the other way, right? It was never any balance. It was always like peaks and troughs. Right? That's not to say life's perfect now. Absolutely, it's a bit more like this now, right? So, I knew I had to go get good at this sort of stuff. So for the last 3 years, I've coached at that event, and I've worked with hundreds of people. And the thing that I've realized is, like, all of those people I've worked with, everyone is completely different, right? We've all got different languages that we use in our heads, right? We've all got different meanings that we give things. We've all got different life experience, and it made me realize that one of the biggest things that messes people up is the constant questions that they ask themselves that have no real meaning. Like, why me? What if I fail? Why is it so hard? What do I have to offer? Who would even listen to me, right? What if I get hurt? When will it change? What's everyone going to think? What will she say, right? What will he say? What if I'm wrong? What if I get laughed at, right? So it's all this stuff that's just happening on autopilot that we don't even realize, right? They're the questions that keep fucking us up and keeping us in that problem space, right? The space that I was in for so long, and it's horrible, right? So I knew I had to get good at this stuff, so that's why I practiced, and that's why I volunteered and I invested time, and if there was someone that was teaching stuff about the mind, I became like a sponge, because it made me realize that and this is nothing against psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, medication, it all has its place, and I'm not telling anyone for a second to stop doing anything that a clinical professional has given you advice to do. That's not my place. Keep doing that. However, if what you're doing is no longer working or you're not getting the positive benefit, what I'm suggesting to you is maybe there's some problems deep in the subconscious mind that we can just start to shift and start to release some of that anger, right? Some of that sadness, some of that guilt, some of those anxious feelings, some of those depressed feelings, right? Because when those feelings aren't getting your energy, your attention, or your awareness, that's when all the solutions can start to appear, right? Because we're not primed and we're not, worried about the phone. We're not worried about what they think. We're not worried about what people are going to say. We're not worried about all this other stuff, right? We start, rather than thinking, what if I can't? We start thinking, well, what would it look like if I did? Rather than saying, I can't make that happen. Okay, well, how could we make that happen, right? And this is the thing I love the most about the stuff that we do. It's not my place to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. It's not. I don't believe it's anybody's place. What this stuff does and what these processes do is it releases the emotion attached to certain events. It releases the emotion and the meaning that we give certain things, right? And with that comes the gift of freedom, the gift of possibilities, the gift of solutions, right? Rather than constantly focusing on the problems and all the stuff that gets in the way, right? The problem with this and the problem that we're in is people are so conditioned to a certain way of thinking, right? You get depressed, you have a pill. You get sad, you have a pill. That pill doesn't work, try a different pill, right? And I know this because I've worked, not only have I gone through that myself, I went through about 15 to 17 different types of medication, right? And at the time, 100% I needed it, because I needed a blanket on me just to numb me out a little bit, right? 100% needed it. I'm not sure whether I'd still be here if I didn't have that time in hospital. Absolutely worthwhile. It's not a long-term thing though, right? And I know of people that have been, and I've worked with them, people have been in and out of psych wards 4 times, 6 times, 10 times, right? And everyone's told me they get more benefit out of the work that we do in a matter of hours than what they get in months, if not years, in the traditional system, right? And it's not to say that talking about your problems to a professional isn't effective or doesn't have merit or hasn't been effective in the past. But what if there's more effective ways? And what if there's faster ways, right? And this is the thing, like it's one of those things that we don't know what we don't know, and if someone said to me 4 years ago, Brent, we would take you through this process and you'll just feel better, like that seemingly, I couldn't have believed you, right? Because my belief system at that time was, well, you go to the doctor, you go to a psychologist, you talk about it, you have medication. Like depression is a chemical imbalance, right? We have all these beliefs around certain things because people tell us, people in positions of authority, right? And it's not to say that they're wrong, they're 100% right for them. But if things aren't working, then maybe there's other things that could be more effective, right? And when you understand how the conscious mind works and the subconscious mind, most people's problems, they're not in the conscious mind. Because consciously, someone knows that smoking's not good, right? Someone knows that eating a whole chocolate cake isn't good, right? Someone knows getting really angry and just yelling at someone in road rage isn't a good thing. It doesn't hurt them, it only hurts you. Yet we still do it. Because all these problems are happening automatically, right? We're not dealing with the conscious mind here, right? So, and I'm not a psychologist. I haven't studied like years and years at university. So I don't. I'm not here to tell you how the brain works or what different fluids are or chemicals are or makeup or parts of the brain or any of that sort of stuff, right? However, what I'm very, very good at is opening up the door, finding the switch, and showing you how to turn it on yourself, right? And take you to your own place, take you into your own place of healing where you'll have that sense of and make decisions from a clear place, right? And not have that pressure, right? There's so many people out there suffering, there's so many people out there hurting because of the way that they have this expectation of how their life should work out because they're attached to a certain outcome or they're attached to a certain way they think things should be, right? I used to drive me insane, right? Literally. And I don't say that lightly, but I understand. I get it. I've been there, and it's horrible. It's dark. It's lonely, and it's scary. It's embarrassing, especially as a man. Right? We get conditioned as men to be tough, and men don't cry. Men are protectors. Add that being a soldier, right? There's 6 guys I know that I deployed with have killed themselves because they can't get their thoughts right. Right? That's why I'm doing this. Because I've seen the results. I've seen what happens when you spend years and months in therapy and medications. I've seen that. I've also seen hundreds of other times other people that have shifted phobias, fear of needles, fear of heights, right? Public speaking. There was a time where I would prefer to go face bullets than have to get up and do a talk in front of people. Even do a video like this. Couldn't do it. Because of a story, right? Because of questions that were fucking me up. What if they laugh at me? What if I get it wrong? Right? What if I fail? Well, what if no one laughs at me? What if I don't fail? What if people need what I've got? Which they do. Right? So if you're experiencing negative emotions that are holding you back, like sadness, anger, fear, judgment, jealousy. If you've got limiting beliefs that are no longer serving you, right? I'll never find love. All men are bastards. All women cheat on you. Or all vegans are crazy. Or whatever these stupid stories or limiting beliefs are. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Who'll listen? If any of these problems are holding you up, then click the button below this video and let's just have a chat. If this isn't right for you, I don't want you to do it. Right? I don't. I'm not here to convince you. However, if you want to make changes, right? If you really want to make changes, and you want the fastest way to do it, click the link below this video. We'll have a chat. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.